What's up, everybody? So, opening this podcast, I'm going to give you some really tough news. The two most strong, athletically gifted archaeologists in this apartment aren't going to be a thing anymore.
It's interesting you say apartment because I've always viewed this thing as a big mansion.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you, it depends on your perspective. What I'm talking about specifically is that Julian and I are moving to two very different places.
Yeah, I wish we would have got the miles and distances, but yeah, it's very, very different. Both moving on to further our careers in some sort of way. Some of us might be moonlighting, or maybe both of us are moonlighting. But with that being said, I mean, the podcast is still going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I try to fake you guys out, giving you the bad news, but the show will continue.
Yeah, so basically we're moving, and today we're just going to provide some of our insights on moving or some of our thought process on, how to move, or maybe just some things that occurred to us while we're in this little space.
Yeah, and, I'm just going to go out there on a limb. It's going to be a big city I'm moving to, so good luck trying to find me. I'm going to, London in England, the United Kingdom, so it's going to be quite a distance from, you guys obviously know that we're in Oregon right now.
Yeah, so London's a huge leap. I'm heading, to the northwest corner of America, which is a large leap from where we're from. So, I mean, it's pretty much on opposite sides of the world. A lot of travel.
Yeah, so I think what we're going to do is, 1 week I'll commute, the next week Julie.
Yeah, we're really committed to finding the fossils as archaeologists in between. And yeah, we're going to commute weekly via boat.
Yeah. But anyway, I think this is like Julian said, this would be a good opportunity to talk about some of the things that we think about when we're moving and give you guys some heads up about thoughts that maybe you didn't think about. So Julian, do you have anything to start off with?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I've run into in this move is I'm moving into my own space. So figuring out, what this space, I haven't been up there, right? The way I found where I'm living is basically a website called apartments.com. I don't know what I would do if there wasn't the internet to find an apartment. So I'm bringing certain things up there like couch, bed. I don't have a dinner table or some other thing. So it's really figuring out the space once I get up there. But some items, I want to buy a rug, but I can't buy that until I'm really up there and I know how the space works, because I don't want to buy a rug that's too big or too small for the space that I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. If you don't know, I think we share that. I don't know the spot. I haven't visited the spot that I'm going to be living at either. And I think that's a decision of, do I bring stuff with me to take over to where I'm going to be moving next, or do I, get it when I'm there? And that's a very important question to ask yourself.
Yeah, and I think too, a thing that you should do when trying to decide that is kind of go through all of the stuff you have, because you may not seem like you have a bit of stuff until it's crunch time, and I had a lot more stuff than I was expecting, and I had to get rid of a lot of stuff just to kind of minimalize, and some of the stuff I didn't necessarily need or I'd had for a long time thinking I'd use and I didn't use, and just kind of comparatively am I going to use this where I'm going? Probably not, and just tossing it.
Yeah, exactly. I think that downsizing, there's always a great opportunity to downsize regardless of wherever you're moving, even if it's a bigger place where you have more personal space. Just because, I think by nature, at least me, I tend to hold on to things I probably shouldn't hold on to. It's almost subconsciously. And by the time that I'm thinking about making a big move like this one, there's a lot of things that I'm dude, why did I keep this? Or, am I really going to use this again? Like you just said.
Yeah. And then you kind of come across some bigger items. So obviously we have a washer and dryer, and Jordan isn't going to ship a washer and dryer, to London. And the unit I'm moving into already has a washer and dryer. So having to get on that early and sell it before we move so that, it's not stuck here, or like you lose part of your apartment deposit in our case for like keeping it here and them having to dump it or something along those lines.
Yeah, exactly. I think that goes into like, being ready to fit into the space that you're moving in. And talking about moving, people could move from, a block like less than a mile away to, obviously me, it'll be thousands of miles away, and you probably, close to a couple 100 miles away. How does travel work in when you're moving things? We talked about downsizing, but now let's talk about getting the stuff there.
I think, it really just depends on your move. Like if you're really connected to your personal items and you feel comfortable driving, a 20-foot U-Haul, or that's what you have to do, that's what you have to do. If you just feel comfortable with like, downsizing, say you're moving to just like a city an hour away and you just feel like, I'm going to put everything I want in a backpack and start fresh. You could do that too. It's just kind of how you look at this new start, or, this new beginning. Because every time you move, it's really, a new beginning or a new start. Even if it's in the same city, like you're in a new house, you have the opportunity to do things different. Rechange your space, rechange, the way you do some certain things. So it's really up to you on how I think you should kind of prepare for your move or ways of moving things.
Yeah, I think that you touched on the phrase, like, it's really an opportunity to do a lot of different things differently, I guess you could say. And the fact that, let's say that you wanted to change it up and, go with a more modern look in your household or decor, and originally it was more rustic, then that's an opportunity to sell all the rustic stuff, or, sell all the decorating that you had before to, make room for your modern look that you're going for. And that's just an example, but it can touch on many facets. It can touch on, clothing, what clothing you're going to bring, what clothing you intend to wear, or like your fashion sense, things of that nature.
Yeah. And in that too, if you're moving a little bit further, there's some things that you don't need immediately as opposed to like long term. So like me moving into my place, didn't have a microwave. So like I needed to get a microwave. But like I said earlier, like I don't really necessarily need a rug right away, or like a dinner table right away, because like it's just going to be me and my space. Like you don't have to buy everything at once. First of all, you're not going to really know how it all fits or comes together. You might, but like, and it's going to save you a little bit of money, because by the time you move, maybe, you work a couple of weeks and you get a little bit more money, and you kind of get more comfortable with the area and find places that have, unique items, or maybe some different stock comes in somewhere. So you don't have to lug, a 12-person dining table up there, the first day, and it saves you some space in that moving van or some shipping cost.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good point as well. Just make sure you know what the necessities are, and, delineate that from the things that you'll want eventually, because they play huge and like absolutely disparate factors in your life when you're moving. The factor that the microwave, like you illustrated, plays compared to the rug it's very different.
So how do you look at this move to another country? Like, what are some of the things you've thought about or excited for in this kind of trek, in this journey?
So obviously, being such a huge change, even regardless of where I was in America, it's going to be a huge difference. I'm going to be in like a different country, different cultures, access to different things, especially like geographically wise. I'll be so much closer to, a myriad of countries and myriad of like cultures and stuff like that. Some of the things I've thought about to make this smooth, the things that I'm like excited for, is obviously like lodging. So that's like, once that's taken care of, and, you figure out, okay, so I'm close to this place, and this place in London. Then you start thinking about, okay, like what is my daily life going to look like? And so for me specifically, I'll paint like a much more vivid picture. I'll be going to school there. So, like what is my commute going to be like to school and back? And like, what things am I going to be wanting to do during the day? Or like, am I going to want to pick up a job? Where do you think that job would be? Things of that nature, as far as like logistic logistics go. But as far as excitement goes, man, I'm just really, really excited to like, experience a lot more diversity and a lot more opportunities to like see different things in different places, as far as, being proximal to a whole bunch of different areas that have very different feels. When, right here where we're at in this mansion, we're not as connected or close to those.
Yeah, it's always interesting, like a move to a much, much larger city and the opportunities given at hand. Like, I wonder if what unique spots you'll find. Like, do they have a sweet ping pong hall down the street, or is is the arcade game scene huge, or, what are the pubs really like? It's always like curious, and I think a fun excitement to, find those hidden gems. And like, I guess you have the benefit of Yelps or internets, or you just, beat into the streets and, taking your Lamborghinis to wherever you want to and seeing what you find.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, obviously, traveling a little bit on my own, there's a little bit of that edge that goes away, kind of, understanding, like, if you're in a different place, then geography is going to be quite different. Like, you want to figure out the tram system or the subway system, really fast, especially in countries. I feel like other than America, a lot of other places have much more developed public transit. So I feel like understanding that would be very important. But also, yeah, I'm a huge proponent of just kind of like walking and getting lost.
Yeah. And I think that kind of made me think of like when you're moving to a new area, it's always nice to like kind of really understand where you're moving. Like you said, like you took to the fact that other country public transport's huge. Maybe you're moving to, a new city and a lot of people are riding their bikes, or, there's a lot of traffic, or, just the weather in general. Like being able to understand that when you move, most people take it into account, but like really understanding how some of that works, or maybe like if you're moving to, say it was New York City or, LA where there's a lot of traffic, maybe trying to learn some of those other routes to get you to work, or, other ways to surpass some of that stuff is going to be beneficial as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think just understanding exactly where you're moving or like the place you're moving to. Obviously, if it's in the same city, you pretty much, I'm sure, have a great, or a good feel about, what there is to offer, or that city or place has to offer. But, if you're going somewhere different, like both of us, it's going to be almost, an introduction, or like, some sort of handshake process of like, oh, okay. So, like this is more of X, Y, or Z, like the place I'm in, than, what I was expecting, or, now I can do this because it's, offered here.
Yeah. I think too, like, I'm really curious about the adjustment to like people types, or like, what you're exposed to moving to like larger cities. I've obviously been in a few large cities for basketball and been around like the country. And every time I've gone, I've always been curious about, just every section of the country is very different. So like for you moving to a different country, you're going to be a lot different mannerisms and like manners, and me moving to like a different pocket of America, a lot different like mannerisms, cultures, etc. So it'll be adapting to that will be kind of a fun little quirky adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be very interesting, specifically in my case. Granted, hopefully, the second I open my mouth, people will understand that I'm not from there. So hopefully that gives me some sort of, grace in the fact of, why is he doing that? Wait a second. Yeah, he's just American.
Yeah, that's true. I guess they'll definitely notice, and that might pique some interest or conversation. And hopefully it's not like a bad thing in some areas, or
yeah, like I get accosted and then I have to start using sign language to get around instead of like speaking.
Yeah, or maybe try to throw on a fake accent. That might be a little bit more offensive.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, I think you're right in the fact of, different people in different places. I think generally speaking, there's always going to be, there's always going to be idiots wherever you go. And not saying that in like kind of like a cynical way, but it's just like, there's always going to be certain castes and types of people, regardless of where you go. It doesn't take a certain color of skin or, come from a certain place to be, not smart with your decisions and X, Y, and Z. There'll be intelligent people, not intelligent people, all of them.
Yeah. Speaking of non-intelligent or unintelligent people, our time in this mansion has seen some very interesting people of the human species. Is there any examples that come to mind when you think of just kind of odd occurrences that have happened around here?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the weird species of people as in us, because there's a lot of weird stuff that I do. And so that goes without saying. But I mean, that one time, I'm not kidding you guys on this podcast. There was one time I came home from work and there's like police cars everywhere. I got into the apartment, and there's police everywhere. I walked into the apartment and figured out, Julian said, yeah, so our neighbor, across the way, literally probably 30 feet away from our door, held somebody up at gunpoint.
Yeah, that was an interesting day. I got out of school. I remember that. I got out of school, was getting ready to go to work at 5, and I usually left at 4:30-ish, 4:25-ish. And I kind of hear this shouting, and I peek out my window and don't really see anything, and I can kind of hear it's close to our door. So I run to our door basically to see what's going on, and we have 3 little window slots above the door, and I kind of just peek through there, and there's our neighbor walking by with his gun up, pointing at some dude, and some dude just talking about he wants to, it's his old roommate basically. Yeah, and that kind of progressed, and then I walked around a little bit longer, and then, by the time I had left and this dude had been at gunpoint, Jordan had come back and was like, dude, you would not believe, there are a ton of cops surrounding this place. I was like, wow, that dude is crazy.
Yeah, and I think, I couldn't tell you of less wild, I couldn't tell you of a more wild experience just because that one, you don't see that every day.
Yeah, it's interesting too because we don't necessarily live in a bad area. There's a lot of elderly people in the complex that we're in, and middle-aged white people. So just to see that on just a random Tuesday was a little amusing to a certain extent, but a little odd.
Yeah. Well, I just want to take the time to point out that, you described, basically you said we're in a safe area. There's a lot of middle-aged white people around here. That's a telltale sign of safety.
Yeah. We have some dude that walks his cat around. I don't know if you've seen that recently, but
oh yeah,
that's always a unique sign. One of the things I remember moving in here is the same neighbor, I guess. When we first moved in, Jordan and I had settled in or whatever, and basically, this dude is just the first time we really see him is, just kind of chilling in his boxers with, his shirt off and stuff, in the comfort of the public. I get the comfort of your own home, but it's become, an everyday occurrence where you see this gentleman just chilling, and it's just a little obscure, I guess.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that makes this guy a caricature just by the way, he decides to wear, his clothing choices. Obviously he stuck somebody up with a gun. He just is doing his own thing about 99% of the time. The other 1% I'm not around for, so I couldn't tell you, but yeah, interesting character for sure.
Yeah. And I guess in terms of our apartment, back to kind of moving tips, after our little side tangents here and there. Trying to get back your deposit is a very interesting process because it really depends on your property management or your land. If you're an apartment or condo or, you're leasing or something like that, kind of getting that deposit back and, some ways to really ensure that that's going to help or you're going to get it back.
Yeah, I think one of the ways is obviously leave it in a good condition and make sure it's clean. That's probably one of the main ones. Sometimes, depending on where you're at and who you're dealing with as far as landlords go, they'll take out some of your deposit automatically for like, carpet shampooing, things of that nature. But it's still a good idea to like, go through, vacuum, just do regular cleaning, even if that's the case, just because, throughout the whole process of you living somewhere, you'll like, things will happen and all of a sudden they become normal to you. So, you don't notice like the scuff on the wall or like, the ding somewhere else. So like before you move, I highly recommend just making sure that you go through and like make sure you're a thorough cleaner or hire somebody to clean, because that'll make a big difference on the deposit you get back.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it, is visual. Like there's some stuff they're going to change regardless, but keeping a clean visual appearance, like maybe cleaning your air conditioning vents or kind of those areas that get neglected, and changing like your air filter so it looks like you frequently change it if you don't. Kind of cleaning up your bathroom, just kind of like the simple things, maybe cleaning up the blinds a little bit, and making sure it kind of smells nice. So whenever they walk in to do that, it kind of doesn't smell stale or stagnant or just like something died in your house. 'Cause if something did die, you'd probably clean it up anyway. So.
Yeah. And another thing you want to think about too, something that, is going on or happens in this house is, early when we moved in, we changed out our light bulbs for LED light bulbs, which is more energy efficient than incandescent light bulbs. So that's another thing you'll want to remember, to replace the light bulbs out back with incandescents, because you'll want to take your LEDs wherever you go next.
Yeah. I think that's kind of a good summary of some of our, tips on what's happening with the podcast, and, just some tangents and stories about here. Hope you picked something up in there.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say, like, thanks, guys. I always do this, but, regardless of where we're at, we're going to be on kind of two different sides of the earth a bit. But, the show will go on, like I said earlier, and, it's just going to probably augment the experience from now on.
Yeah, you'll probably get some very interesting stories from two opposite sides of the country. We'd really appreciate if you guys, left a rating or subscribed on whatever platform you're on, and kind of helped us out there as we continue to grow with your support and help. And maybe that helps us grow into one day meeting some of you people in person, or, hearing some more of your stories, or just the ability to share some of our tips or things we've learned over time.
Yeah. Once again, see you guys.